Money is not neutral. It carries culture, history, and expectations.
Join us for honest conversations about the real costs behind how we live, love, give, and just survive in this complex world.
Money. It is not black or white.
Powered by GoTime.
Inna Mapalomaku.
And I'm Maya Fisher-French. Welcome to our podcast.
My job is my side hustle. I put all my effort into anything that I do, so I'm 100% committed to my profession.
Hey, Drastic, it has improved my life in a way that I feel that when you're actually self-employed, it needs you to be more disciplined. And you need to know that you need to plan your day accordingly. Each and every minute or every second that you lose, it has a negative impact.
Now, today's topic, Maya, is plastered all over social media. Self-help books, you name it. The fact that everyone must start a side hustle. Your 9 to 5 is no longer enough. Everybody must have a side hustle. And of course, it does come with some burnout. It does come up with balancing your actual work and starting this side hustle.
And I think, Mapalo, it's more than that. I think it's made to sound so easy. Like everyone must be an entrepreneur. And if on top of your day job, you're not doing 50 other things, then you're falling behind. So I think we want to bring a little bit of perhaps context to all of that. And of course, the other big thing when you have a side hustle, or even in a world like you and I are, right? We're giggers, right? We have lots of different gigs going on, lots of different things we're doing, is the tax element.
Oh, yeah.
And how we manage that. So we have an expert on two fields, Alison Burnell. I'm so glad you're joining us because not only is she an accountant for small businesses, but she's also a business coach. So when I saw your profile, I thought, this is somebody we need to be bringing on because you can bring in both of those contexts. And I just want to say, Alison, when you and I were chatting and Mapalo and I were doing a briefing session with you, you spoke about this idea that, not every passion needs to become an income. And I think let's kick off with that.
Yes, I think... there's two ways to look at it. I know for myself that I worked for somebody for years ago in an accounting business and I couldn't wait to get out. And I realized that I wasn't a very good employee. And so my passion at that time was just to be able to get out of my job, actually. And then it became a motivation to be there for my children. And then it became out of necessity to actually make money out of it in order to pay the bills and to pay for the car, which I just bought stupidly. But anyway... And so I've always encouraged a lot of people to do the same thing, to have one which is actually your sound income, because I couldn't just launch. I had to wait my 6 years, build up my business slowly, cut back my hours, think about it, find my niche, and then actually go do it, and then do the thing that I loved after that. Firstly, having my own time, but then also training to become a business coach and actually helping other business owners as well. So, yeah.
I think that's important. What Alison was just saying is having that steady income and from that on the side, building what you really want to do.
Yeah. But Maya, on top of that, there are people who feel like, you know what, I've been wanting to start a business for many, many years. This is the holy grail of financial freedom. Then they've been working for a couple of years in corporate, for example. They have a pension fund or provident fund. They quit their job and say, I'm going to take my pension or provident fund money and fund this business that you have not had a day in. So that's another thing. Should people be doing that? Is that a wise way to go about starting a business?
I always say, find what you're passionate about. And it's something called Ikigai. And it's kind of, I think it's a Japanese concept. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it's, can you make money from it? Are you good at it? Does the world need it? Think like that. And then also think business plan. But then even if it's a very small business plan, but then also think backup plan. So it's very dangerous just to step out and then just use money without testing it. So there's various ways that you could test it. And also, the reality as well in South Africa is that a lot of people after the age of 50 don't have the luxury of being able to just go on pension. The reality is that because we don't have the dole, for example, only the UK has that, but we do have to start thinking not only when you go on pension, but actually from even when you start working, I believe, to start thinking, what am I really good at? What am I passionate about? Do I want to be here for the next 40 years? What if I get to 56 years old? I don't have a job. To start thinking more open-minded rather than in your little niche, or your little kind of blocks of thinking. Maybe you would have studied or whatever, but maybe there's something that you're really passionate about. So just to come back to the question that you asked me, I think it's very dangerous just to launch in something that you haven't tested, your business plan, your backup plan, and then to test it. So when is a business a business? Is it the fact that you've registered a business? Or is it the fact that you've broken even in that business? Or have you made a profit? Actually, a business is a business as soon as you've actually got the intention to make profit. So make sure that, like I said, it goes back to the very beginning. Start with your dream, then put it into a goal, which is really putting action behind it. And then one step at a time, get a very good business plan. If you don't know how, ask for advice. Before launching and throwing money at it, though, you can also do something called the Disney model. Walt Disney, what he used to do is he used to have, in the room, he used to have an optimist, a pessimist, and a realist. And so the optimist would throw out the idea and he would go, his biggest, wildest dream would be XXX. And then the pessimist would come in and tear it apart completely. And then the realist would go, actually, what if? So testing, don't just throw your money, have your backup plan, like I said.
And what about actually running something on the side whilst you're in that business? I mean, you were talking about, you wanted to exit this company that you were working for. And I think for a lot of people, you can sort of start off by just trialing something, having it on the sideline, those weekends, after hours, starting to build something and then realizing at some point that this could actually translate into a viable business, but still leaving your job and leaving that security. You're going to have to do a lot of financial planning, even within your own finances, around making that step as well.
That's correct. And it also depends on the type of business that you have. So, and also, not everybody wants to start a business. So you do have employees that are really happy to be employees, and then they make it work. So they would, for example, climb up the ranks, and they would have their stable, pension fund, and then they're just wise with their money, and they're very happy to be that. So not everybody has to start a business. But if you are anything like me, who was really a very bad employee, and I wanted more, and I wanted my freedom, and I wanted to be there for my children, like I said, there's 3 reasons, I would say probably more, but 3 that I think of why people would want to launch a side business or a side hustle. And that would be really out of necessity because they're not earning enough money. Or maybe they have an elderly parent who's really needing extra care. Maybe their children are becoming older and they need to, start funding, tertiary education. Another reason would be a motivation. They want to start saving for a holiday. Or for me, I wanted to be there for my children. And then another one would be a passion. So, for example, the person who's excellent at baking bread, for example, and they're really stuck in this 9 to 5, they really want to just be able to bake bread because they love that and they can see the value that they give to other people just by giving their bread out. Then they can start doing that, but they can do it cautiously, wisely, and also to note that exhaustion does not mean resilience. So working to the point of breaking doesn't mean that you're being resilient. It means that you've got to be wise. So if you're doing it for your family, then don't let it break your family. Don't let it impact your family. So rather take it one step at a time and enjoy it. I think that's the best thing.
Enjoying it. So Maya, what were some of your steps? When did you realize that, I'm going to step out and do the gig economy? Were there specific things?
Yeah,
that you felt
again,
like
and I think for women so often, and it's interesting to me, Alison, that yours was around your children, because in a corporate environment, I was working, late hours. There was huge demands on me. And when I had my son, I thought, I don't want to be committing this amount of time to this corporate. I want to have the flexibility. So flexibility drove a lot of my decision making. And I think one of the things that I was fortunate enough is that I was married and my husband could help financially support me for a period of time. But what I can tell you is that, and I think this is very important to know, is that I went freelance. It took me 2 years to build up to the income I had
Yes.
in the corporate world. And I don't think people realize how long it takes. And I've often told my story where I didn't cut back enough financially. I needed to make more financial sacrifices. And then this is where we land up in debt and why I can tell my story about getting out of debt, because it was during that transition period as well, where you need to know that when you take the step, you're going to have to look at lifestyle and you're going to have to say, right, what goes? I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this because I want a different outcome. I want to have I want to be a freedom, all those things that you think you're going to get with working for yourself. You're going to have to say what gives. And what gives is the eating out and the clothes and the facials and the nails. Things do go and it takes longer.
It takes a bit
Yeah.
longer.
And you?
Yeah, no, 100%, Maya. For me, I had always wanted to write. So I had started a blog, and it was while writing this blog, some work started coming through. Hey, can you write for us? And that's how you even eventually met with Maya. But it does take time. I remember in that year, Maya, I think I made less than 150,000 Rand a whole year. And you can imagine you have a household that you're running, you have a child who's going to private school, and you have an two-income household that takes care of everything, and having to cut back, we had to make tough decisions. So I think what we're saying is it does take some time, but know your reasons why. So the other question, Alison, is when do you decide to formalize a business? Do you just go on by yourself, or Mapalo Inc., and you continue like that, money goes into your account? Or is it more preferable to register a business, go through the CIPC route and have your own the business bank account? Is it preferable to just be an individual running a small business, or formalize it?
I think it depends again on your need. I would always say start off as a sole proprietor, which is really Maya trading as somebody or Mapalo trading as somebody. But for myself, I wanted credibility. So I decided to register as a PTY Limited. I think there were 3 or 4 of us that left the company at the same time because we were so well trained. We all started different elements of accounting actually. And then we all kind of decided to register as PTY Limited in order to gain credibility, because you don't instantly have that. But then there's a cost, which you probably will go into. But the cost of having a PTY Limited is, they say that your assets are protected, but firstly, you have to have assets. And they take a while to accumulate. But secondly, around the tax legislations, and you have to have annual financial statements, and there's more compliance needed. So you have to tread carefully. And what I have seen, just to put the other end, out there, I've seen so many people thinking that they could avoid tax by starting different companies. So as the one starts attracting SARS debt, and then they launch into another company, and they start another one, they think that they're being smart, and then they come to us and they need help, and they realize, they're dodging VAT registration and things like that. But it's not wise, because actually the SARS liability doesn't go away, and then they can also lose their small business tax. So small business tax is a test that you can do. And normally as a small business, if you have a product, then you can actually, qualify to have that, and it's 7% versus 27% as a company. So I think you have to tread carefully. I would always say test it first. So as I'm saying, test, tread carefully, have your business plan. A business plan can be very simple. Have a backup plan, and then launch. Have your money in the bank. I didn't. I really like your story as well, because I was the same. But it took me 6 months, and I first of all started as a sole prop, cut back my hours. I tested everything. I read every book that I could. I thought, could I do it? And finally, I thought, I'm going to do it. And then the minute that I launched and I registered my company, I was all big stuff. Got a PTY Limited now, bought a car, I had one client. That client quit. I think he was 90. That was really stupid. And he just retired. And he said, I'm not doing this anymore. Started panicking. Thought, oh no, now I'm all mixed up with this company. And then I had to make it work. And so that drove me to actually make a success of my business. It's been 12 years on.
So that's so interesting. I feel like we've just given everyone a lesson on how not to do it.
Yes.
But in what you've said, is that what drove you? Because suddenly you had to pay for the car, and you had so it kind of became the motivation. And maybe if you have a really large lump sum and a nice little nest egg, you're just not quite as motivated to work hours. I don't know. But I think we're also looking at the transitions we've all made, which is from corporate into totally self-employment. But this is the side hustle, side gig is also about staying, it being a kind of additional income. And I think that's an interesting question around whether you form the PTY and how you look at that from a tax perspective. Because Mapelo, we pick this up a lot, especially with people who start in the influencer world, for example. They'll start doing influencer work. They'll start earning money, especially internet, abroad, where maybe earning it from YouTube or whatever. And they're very unaware of the tax consequences of that. So maybe also just give a perspective if you're somebody with a side hustle. So you've still got your primary income, but this is an additional income.
Yes, so sometimes people get startled or they get shocked and they go, oh my word, I didn't know. But the fact is that your name is on the tax return. And I've often got to point that out and go, by the way, it's not you, not me. And so the minute that you start earning any form of income, if it's additional income, even if it's money made while you're sitting in South Africa and, it's made from, for example, the foreign income that you mentioned, you have to add that to your tax, and then you have to register to become a provisional taxpayer. It's a simple little block that you have to tick. And that means that you have to submit 3 times a year as opposed to once a year.
So how do people know? So let's say this is someone who is on YouTube, for example, and they get a little bit of income from there. How would they know that they should do that little tick? Or you're just saying, or putting a blanket approach to say, if you earn any other income outside of your normal working hours, do tick for provisional tax.
I think a lot of people, if they are full-time employed, then their company submits their tax for them, which would be PAYE almost, and that would go off automatically. So again, it comes back to your name is on the tax return. So find out how. There's a number of so many accounting practices. I think there's 80,000 or something in South Africa, probably more, that you just have to reach out to somebody and go, let me get hold of my e-filing details. Let me figure out how to do this. Let me take responsibility. It's actually exciting to actually take charge and not duck and go, oh, wow, I'm tax compliant. And to have that tax compliance at the end of every year is amazing because it makes you feel good as well. It's not so scary. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, we are of course recording this in the middle of tax filing season. And one of the big things has been the auto assessments, right? Yes. So if you are fully employed and your company's doing the PAYE for you, you've probably been auto-assessed. But if you are earning another income, you're going to have to declare it. And that's when you're going to have to go back into e-filing and say, well, I had this additional income. And there is a massive tax consequence. In fact, Mapelo, one of the years that I was doing Money Makeover for City Press, one of the people that was in my group was in financial difficulty because of an additional income. So she was a full-time lecturer, I think, and she was doing some side work. And she had never realized that so her company was taking off, the university was taking off her PAYE, but all the other income was still had to be taxed, and it pushed her into a new tax bracket. So suddenly she owed SARS a large amount of money. And I think this is what's happening to a lot of people with side hustles. They don't realize that it's not just the additional income that you're going to pay tax on, it's the cumulative. You're pushing you up tax brackets. So suddenly you're owing quite a lot of tax. And do you know what she did? She ducked it. She avoided it. Next thing is she changed jobs and discovered that SARS was taking money off her salary every month because they're allowed to do that. So this business of I'll get away with it, especially when you've got a full-time job that SARS can go after.
Yeah. It's like, can they go after your bank account and actually debit whatever amount they choose?
Yes, they actually can. If people want to know more, they can actually Google it.
It is amazing. I do have to tell you. I mean, I did a column on using AI to answer tax questions, and it's quite effective.
Yes, exactly. And so they are allowed to, apparently they have to send a court order 10 days beforehand, but they also don't have to. So we're not too sure that one works, but SARS is SARS. So, but yes, they're even allowed to go after your clients. They're allowed to get any way of getting money out of you, actually.
Sure.
So
And
they
they
can take money out your bank account. It's happened to us. My husband had a dispute with them.
Yes.
And in the dispute process, SARS was actually incorrect, but they went and took money out his bank account at the beginning of the month. I might tell you, it hurt us. But they can go to your employer with effectively a garnish order
Yeah.
and take money off. And this is the situation she was in. Suddenly she had the SARS debt that she had to do. And what was interesting for me was the minute she engaged with SARS, it was all fine. You know, you've got to engage, and she came up with a repayment plan and when the debt would be settled and all the rest of it. So you do need to engage.
Absolutely. So us as tax practitioners, we're obviously in an accounting body, and we've been told, please guys, can you get your guys just to reach out to SARS? Please, can you submit your returns? Because there's an admin penalty, I think it's 250 Rand minimum, up to 16,000 Rand for every non-submission. So even my son, you know, he submitted, he's just been a hockey coach throughout his university and cricket coach as well. But because he didn't submit a return 1 year and it was a month late, he got hit with 250 Rand. And we're kind of indignant going, how can they? But the fact is that we do have to take that responsibility.
And I think also what we want to come across on this podcast is that SARS is not a scary body.
Correct.
This is not somewhere, you know, you can't have a conversation with. It's best to actually just go into the office, find out, where am I? Where do I stand, so that you can get your taxes sorted out?
Absolutely. And a lot of people have phoned me even over the years and they go, I can't sleep. You know, please, can you help me sleep? So we can say, we can help you sleep. Anybody, any accounting practice can help you sleep, and SARS can help you sleep. But just embrace the problem. Don't stick your head in the sand like an ostrich, because it's not going to go away. It's just going to get worse.
So my son was hit with penalties. He was a student. I mean, he was still at school. And the reason was we'd had an investment in his name, which we had sold out, funny enough, to transfer into a tax-free savings account. And it had triggered a capital gains event. And that is another reason to submit to SARS. You just don't realize it. So we didn't know. And next thing is when he did some freelance work and he had an IRP5 and he thought he was going to get a refund. And they said, no, we're taking this for all the penalties. Yes. We then appealed and he got all his money back. They removed the penalties because he said, I didn't earn an income. There was no capital gains actually due. There was no capital gains tax due. So I think if you do engage, it does get resolved. But it is quite funny because with SARS season now, I've had people commenting saying, I'm so terrified. And I think we do need to take away this kind of idea of this terror.
Absolutely. And we can also just break it down. And then, as you said, as soon as people make payments, even if it is, I don't know, there's small penalties of 1,000 Rand or even 14,000 Rand, just pay the money and then we can dispute it afterwards. But they often don't dispute it until you've actually paid the money. Sometimes admin penalties they do, but when it's long-term penalties and then you actually have to pay it first and then worry about trying to get the money back. And they often do refund.
So some of the small things that I think we haven't touched on when you start a business, is it a good idea to say maya@gmail.com? I know it sounds like very simplistic, but sometimes people say they want that professionalism where it's a company name, for example.
Yes.
Should you be spending so much on subscriptions at the beginning stages of your business?
I think when you say subscriptions,
So, for example, getting Maya on money.com.
Oh, you mean the domain?
The domain, getting the website done, you know, all of those things that you make it look more professional.
I would say that that's worth spending some money on. I think professionalization. What are your thoughts, Alison?
yes, I think there's two ways of looking at that. Also coming from network marketing, I happen to really be good at sales, which is quite weird because I've got an accounting business, but I was number one in one network marketing company. And then I saw that people would almost get their business cards first instead of worrying about their actual getting the clients or building their team, for example. So people often go throw money. They could put even 10,000 Rand towards their business, but then they're not worrying about how can they sell. Can they sell? So they might spend all that money, but actually they can't sell themselves. So worry about, as I said, the full business plan. That's your marketing side, but how will you sell it? Who's your target market? Can you make a success of it? Is there a need of it? Instead of just throwing money. So yes, it is important, but to register a company is really cheap. To have a domain is 99 Rand a month. Get yourself a name, register at CIPC, then you have a PTY Limited. It's very easy to have that. But actually what's difficult is making a success of it. And then also deregistering is a nightmare. So rather cover all of your bases before you just launch.
I mean, I would say that 99 Rand a month on a domain is again, if you've reached a point where you feel like this is something I'm going to be doing, it's probably worth it. I would wait a long time before doing the PTY. And this is my personal experience. I'd be interested in yours as well, Mapelo. So mine was, I ran a sole proprietor for 11 years.
Yes.
And then I moved into the PTY, and there was huge benefits to doing that. Professionalization. It was also became more tax efficient to do it. Yes. But you know what I discovered was my bank fees tripled overnight. And I have a big bugbear banks with this. Is that your bank, banks say, oh, you're a business. Now suddenly your fees go up massively. Running as a sole proprietor, I had a much cheaper bank account. Yes. That was probably the one negative. But I think, and also being VAT registered, yes. There is, because my end user is a corporate, yes. Most of the time. But I think if you are doing a personal services business where your end client is a consumer, then being VAT registered isn't necessarily the right way to go, unless, of course, you're in the tax threshold, which is 2.4 million now. 2.2. So I think I think it is about starting slowly and just using the sole proprietor, doing, building the business, and then getting to a point. Because I do think sometimes you rush out and you form the PTY and you think that's going to be, now you're professional, now all the business is going to come. I agree. I think that you've got to take it a little bit slower.
Make sure that you actually have sales in the business.
Have sales, make sure you have a business before you register a business. Maybe
exactly. So that's interesting, because the definition, as I said, is actually with the intent of making money. But it's not necessarily making money. And then people get shocked because, there was one lady, she put her heart and soul into her PTY Limited. At the end of the year, she got, but my salary, I've only earned 5,000 Rand for the whole year for myself. But she was so passionate about it. So sometimes it's actually should have the intent of making money, but actually it's about passion. So why form the PTY Limited then? If you're just going to do this as a passion project, actually, just do it as a sole prop then in your own name and have fun, because you didn't need to earn the money.
I mean, often, obviously, when you talk about business, it's about making money. So let's say you've started this business and you actually see that, this thing is not lifting off as I had imagined. When do you switch off? When do you say, I'm wrapping this up? And you mentioned something along the lines also of deregistering. How does one go about that?
Firstly, you have to pay all of your SARS debt. You can't just duck, otherwise you have to liquidate. And that's very expensive, in my opinion. So pay it all off, and then you can contact CIPC, contact SARS, and then you have to deregister both. And then the waiting period normally is about 6 months. So, but in the meantime, there would be more SARS, returns needed. In the meantime, your CIPC annual return might be needed, and a beneficial ownership as well, which is attached to CIPC. And so there's quite a lot of compliance that is needed. So rather weigh it up.
I tell you do need to take these things slowly and not, And I think that is, I come across people, and sometimes do a Windy search, and they own like 5 or 6 PTYs. And what happens is you forget to keep up the tax on them. So people start a PTY and then it doesn't work out and they just leave it. And they're being clapped every year. Penalties, non-submission, all of that. So I think it is also about making sure your admin is taken care of as well, and that you don't just leave these things lying around dormant.
Absolutely, yes.
And I have a couple of those in the Money Bootcamp buy. Yeah, we definitely have a couple of those.
So I think also save. If you do have a side hustle and it is starting to make some money, start saving already in that side hustle. The same with VAT. Put aside that money in a side hustle, prepare for your tax. Don't be caught unawares and go, oh my word, I didn't know. we should be taught more in South Africa, I think, more about, SARS, because they're not out there just to come and nail us and steal our money. Actually, we are liable to actually pay, tax.
Well, or sometimes I have to do resented, but
I think everybody does.
Just a little bit. But I think what you made such an interesting point there, Addison, and that was something I had to learn in my business as well, was when whatever income you get, you immediately have to put a percentage away for tax. And so I actually have a separate bank account, savings account linked to my account for the tax, so that I know when tax comes due that the money's actually there. I move it out immediately, and I would also move my VAT out immediately. Because first of all, so tax is one part of it, but VAT is literally money that you have collected on behalf of SARS. That's actually what it is. It never is yours. And I have picked up that is the biggest stumbling block for most people with a side hustle, even becoming self-employed, is that they don't put the money away for the tax. Absolutely. And then they're suddenly scrambling.
So I think another thing that they can do is they can register for PAYE when they are a PTY Limited, register the business as a PAYE, entity, whatever it is, so that they can submit a salary. Well, not submit a salary, but a payslip, for example. And in that, every single month, even if they don't have a lot of money that month, they say at least submit a return for an EMP 201 return, PAYE basically, for 10,000 Rand a month. Because then it's a little bit of PAYE, but at least it's a provision towards your tax.
I do that. I am an employee of my business, and I receive my salary every month. Which is also that I have my retirement deduction off there. So all my tax is paid before I go in. So I think that is obviously another way. Absolutely. But again, that's when you have your PTY. If you're talking to somebody who's got a side hustle, who's not forming a PTY, they will still need to consider the tax side.
And you feel empowered as well.
Maya, on my end, I have accountants for this. I just made sure that I get on top of things. I pay them a retainer every single month. So they fix my payslip for me. They submit pay for me. Even VAT, they will always communicate and say, hey, these are your financials. This is what's happening. Even with CIPC, all of that, just so that I know that I'm on top of things. Otherwise, my things would be a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I happen to be married to my accountant. Yeah, it's like, I keep being in the family.
But I think that you made a good point, because you can't actually get out there and hit the road and be doing a borehole business or deliveries because you've got a cleaning service. And so this is, obviously, we offer that service, outsourced accounting, because people often can't do both, or it's not necessarily their strength to do the admin. Even I hate doing admin, but I mean, we obviously have people doing that for other people as well, and it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, it is really, really worthwhile. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Addison, and this is because I was actually asked this question by a member of the crew. So many of the people that we come across are freelancers, so they do content creation, and a lot of the time the content creation is done for overseas companies. And there's this whole thing about how does this work from a tax perspective, from a declaration perspective.
In a nutshell, again, it can be a little bit complicated because it depends where you're actually doing the work. So if your primary residence is South Africa, then you would be taxed as a South African citizen. But if you are going to be starting a company that is in the UK, for example, and you're mainly working there for more than a certain period. Again, Google is really good because others have to look at my notes. But and then you would fall under that tax bracket as well. And so it's important. I think that South Africa, they now, I think from 2001, they said that your worldwide income would be taxed as a primary, wherever you are a primary resident.
So I think it takes away all confusion. It's very simple. If you live in South Africa, and this is where you call your residence, you pay all your tax in South Africa. So no matter who you're billing overseas, you have to declare it as taxable income. And the other big thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, they have to bring the money back to South Africa because of exchange control. You can't leave the money in a dollar account. I've been trying to work out how to get around that, but you can actually create a business account if you have a PTY, and you can have a business account. So there are some ways of being able to do it, but generally speaking, you do need to bring it back, and you do need to declare it.
So the normal general rule is if you are out of the country for more than 91 days. So that would be one of the tests. But again, there's a test.
Yeah.
Google the test and then do the test.
I think for most people, they are doing remote work.
Yes.
It's content creation, remote work, or we talked about the influencers, and that all does need to be declared as part of your taxable income in South Africa.
Yeah, I think the overarching theme is if you are living in South Africa, earning an income, please do declare it, just to be safe.
But it's so interesting because I've got a client who's in Canada, but she's got a PTY Limited that is registered as a South African company. And only now has she become a tax resident of Canada. But she's still liable in South Africa because her PTY Limited is declaring that she's earning a salary. And so she's actually liable for South Africa and Canada at the moment until she actually doesn't earn money from a South African company.
So it is complicated.
Yeah.
It gets very complicated.
And when things get complicated, get the help that you need from professionals. I think it's worth the money to pay a professional to help you with those areas where you don't have the strength.
Absolutely.
But I think just to wind up, advice that one would give to somebody with a side hustle, and maybe then those transitioning into the side hustle as their full-time job. I do want to pick up, Alison, something that you said to us in our briefing session about your daughter and how she has three streams of income. And one is the mainstream, one is the passion, just because I think that's just a nice little anecdote to end off with.
So I think because I've learned from myself not being a great employee and kind of sitting in a job which I hated, I couldn't wait to get out to be with my children. In fact, I think the owner of the company at the time, it was an accounting practice, said, "You act as if your children come first." And I was like, yes, you do. And then she still said to me that you'll make a success of it because of client service. And I think any business that if you focus on client service and you become excellent at what you are doing, I think then it's a win-win. Client service and excellence. So that was the only thing that I can say that I really was good at the time. But because of my experience and always having this other personality and not fitting the typical accountant type, this is why I became a business coach, almost like a circle fitting into a square environment. I learned that I had to have a passion outside of my work. So I encouraged my daughter and my son. So my son is a fifth-year law student. He's doing his articles now. He's always coached hockey and cricket. And that's his passion, sport. And so he knows that if law doesn't work out, he can maybe become a coach. And then for my daughter, when she was in her journalism honors year, she started launching a Pilates video, launch. And she was a waitress. So I think that was 2 streams of income. And because it was kind of countering the hardship of doing journalism. And then she soon learned that she actually couldn't do that. She had to wait until she actually had a job. But still, she's a Pilates instructor at Virgin Active. She does some journalism on the side as well that feeds her. And then she has her normal day job, which is actually for a UK company. And all 3 of them together feed her. But I think a better example would be the nurse that I actually interviewed, actually asking her some questions. And she found that caring for people was so hard. And she found that actually you don't get thanked, especially during COVID. It was really hard. Just giving, thanklessly to people. And then she would go to gym after hours, kind of to pop herself up again so she could sleep. And then somebody said to her, why don't you become a Pilates and a shape class, instructor? So she did that. And then slowly she could get out of the 8 hours that she was working as a nurse. And then she would, reduce her hours. And she found that when she started teaching classes, she got applauded after 45 minutes. Every 45 minutes, she was applauded, got amazingly recognized. She was thanked profusely, and she was so fed as a human being. So, and then she would actually be there more for her children. So I think that's just a lovely story.
I have to just, add something in that Alison was saying about your daughter writing on the side because that feeds her soul. Yes. Do you know that I wrote for free? I I went into journalism for free. So I wrote columns for MoneyWeb. I did not get paid because I wanted to become a journalist. I had left the corporate world, I'd left the financial world, and I wanted to become a journalist. So that is what I did. I did it for free because it fed my soul. It trained me. I got feedback. So yes, sometimes that's also what it takes to make that transition. I forgot about that actually until you mentioned it.
Yeah. So sometimes you're saying at the beginning you will not be paid for the very thing that you want to do. Do it either way.
Yeah, do it either way. Because you get the experience, you learn whether you want to do it. And that is, I did that for free.
And life is short. Have fun.
And I mean, Maya, sorry, Alison, you still love journalism.
It's still my favorite.
It's still your favorite of all the things that we do.
Of everything.
Writing is still one of your favorite.
It's still my absolute passion. And it is. It's interesting. So that obviously was something I just realized really fed me. And again, I do the gig economy. We do the podcasts and the talks and all the other things. But because I get fed from all of them, but I still have held on to that journalism.
Amazing. Awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, Alice, for joining us. And hopefully our listeners have also picked up a little bit of tips. We're in the middle of tax filing season, so we wanted to give you a little bit of insight. If you have a small business, please make sure your taxes are up to date. If you have a side hustle, you're supposed to be, declaring that income. Make sure you know what that is. Make sure you understand how that's going to impact your taxes. And if you need to, please get a tax expert.
Yeah. And also, it's okay to bootstrap your business at the beginning. Don't throw money at a business that hasn't quite taken off just yet.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.